Well,
it used to be Bush Co.
Now, you do know some people think that something drastic is going to happen and there will be no presidential election. Do you pick up any of that at all?
We picked that up in, actually, one of the first things we started picking up in 97. That everybody thought, that just was shocking to me because we picked it up in financial circles. Oh my God, Clinton's going to stay forever and we're thoroughly hosed here. That kind of thing.
Well, they may come back in the back door.
True. I mean, nothing like a duality being expressed here in our own backwoods with Bush, Clinton.
Yeah, I'm opposed to dynasties.
Yeah.
I think a country needs fresh leadership, and we just don't seem to be truly getting it at this point.
Well, you can't have it with duopoly.
No, you can't at all. But the computer doesn't point out, or does it point out mass dissatisfaction?
Oh, no question about that. That's the revolution and rebellion meme, and it's everywhere. It goes all the way from mutiny within the armed forces.
Have you ever seen this bad, Clif?
Never. And it continues to escalate, and we have a whole lot of it around through the summer that leads us to make an interpretation that a series of circumstances could arise in which the government does not have the ability to react fast enough, and the populace is so disgusted with politicians in general that there's basically a huge national cry for throw all the bums out now, let's just do the election today and get it over with.
Oh, my God. Welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie with our two guests this night, George Ure and Clif. This is absolutely incredible, and you know what? What's scary is I think most of this will happen, you two.
Do you have your garden in yet?
Well, I don't have a garden because I go back between L.A. and St. Louis, and I never have a chance to grow anything.
See, we've got problems with food on the horizon, too.
Shortage?
We're already experiencing that. I mean, wheat production globally is at a 9-year low, I believe.
What about drinking water, Clif?
That's problematic itself. We're finding vast quantities of the contamination word showing up, has been showing up for several years, and now it's showing up in the mainstream media. Or actually starting to cross the boundary from indie media into mainstream. So water itself will be an issue. Purity and et cetera, in terms of aspects that have been associated with that. That, I don't think, will be a driving force for us, though. It appears that it will be swamped by other events, no pun intended, in terms of the future importance of things. We have these words that show up that are distinct, like diaspora. We had one showing up before the Katrina, then, of course, the scattering of the peoples that resulted from Katrina met the diaspora language. At that point, it was an American one. Now it shows up in more global fashion. And so I think that large diaspora will be driving a lot of the popular social angst in the next few years. And the diaspora will come about from a wide variety of issues, everything from vast foreclosures, and as we were saying, the squatting issues, the fuzzy revolution there, as well as climate change problems.
But if you really want to worry about water, there's a lake. I'm trying to remember, Cliff, where is it? Up in Colorado someplace?
Yeah, I think you're speaking about the one with the
toxic stuff in it.
The probability that it's going to flood. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's my old favorite movie that I used to watch almost every Christmas Eve, Christmas Carol, and by Charles Dickens, of course, turned into a movie. And I'll always remember when Scrooge was with one of the spirits, and he was thinking of things that have not happened yet. And I said, basically, he said, are these the shadows of the things that will be, or shadows of things that could be? And in this particular case, can any of this be changed, or is it a question?
If we can predict it, can we change it? That's not anything I can answer. That's like a why question. We just don't go there. You can demonstrate to me that you can change. I think that humans have to change in order for their perception of the world to change, in order for that to allow for the future itself to change. That makes sense. I don't think that if you kept humans the way they are now, that the changes in the future are likely.
the way they are now.
Correct. I mean, look at how everybody is all fear-bound, and we're subject to all of these divisive duality kind of producing influences. It's an either-or kind of a concept being drilled down and pressed down upon us by the invisible hand, if you will. That's a term that comes from Buckminster Fuller, by the way.
You know, one of the reasons I enjoy just coming in to do this program every day is because the people who listen to this program want to learn. They're enlightened. I think they are more spiritually inclined than most people. They're concerned about this country. They're concerned about this planet. And, you know, they're also concerned about the one world government and getting taken advantage of. It's kind of like a huge family, you two, that kind of bands together all the time for the common good.
It's a self-organizing collective.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can that be used for change?
Certainly can.
So how do we get the computer to start spitting out things like things are getting better and you know, it's not as bad? Or is
it's not the computer guy. I keep saying that I've been on a lot of people's case over the years.
Well, I know the computer doesn't create it, but it finds it.
Correct. And so, therefore, it must be there for it to be found. So you change the humans, and our computer software will change as well. It'll pick up that aspect.
So maybe when you're on the next time or the time after, you may be saying, I got to tell you, it's this negativity isn't as widespread as it might have been when we were on last time. Is that possible?
It's possible, but we have things showing up in model space that actually go
further than 19 months.
Yeah. Death of religion, for example, is one of the memes that pops out.
So do vast quantities of disruption due to climate change, which is likely irreversible. So those aspects of life will not change. The words around them probably won't change. So I can't really say that it's probable that we'll be able to report that when we come back. I don't want to be a negative fellow by nature. I'd love to be an optimist. And I am optimistic in that the universe does seem to support humans.
And there are some things that will come along. For example, we're looking for a strong female uniter or social unifier to come along, perhaps starting to emerge into mainstream as early as the end of March, maybe into April. We don't know who she'll be.
Worldwide or nationally?
Globally, it appears, in a particular pathway through the Americas into that global consciousness.
Huh.
So we may be wrong. It might not be a woman per se because our descriptor set begins with female personality.
But it goes to South Central America, the Highlands,
a woman of great education, but not necessarily schooling, and with demonstrable skill set that's quite out of the ordinary.
Yet we don't know who that is.
Correct. We don't get that kind of stuff. But we had certain indications that a female personality would actually and metaphorically erupt into the public consciousness within the U.S. of A. And within, what was it, George, 2 months, there was the Cindy Sheehan appearance. And all we got there was a vague sort of a description of a rising female personality.
How about that president of Argentina? What is her name? Christina Fernandez de
No,
Kirchner?
we won't be seeing this person rise out of the elite. We have them sliced and diced into a thing we call the powers that be entity and some others. And no, this person is very definitely not from that ilk.
Okay, what about the Antichrist? Do you get an impression of who that
might be? Bear in mind, most people on the planet are not Christian. Bear in mind that almost all words around religion are hot. So the changes are minuscule because the same hotness continues from day to day to day. So anything that we might postulate towards religion other than a very broad brush is likely very misleading. So no, we don't get anything that would support Christianity or any of its particular beliefs.
Well, that's pretty
I mean, it's harsh. I'm harsh that way because I'm not Christian. I'll state that right out. I have particular biases that are neither taken into account nor promulgated on the work. I have a particularly morally focused view. People around me don't find fault with that. So far, we've been good about it. And thus, I've been able to report, for instance, that, Israel is about ready to make one hell of a mistake. And in fact, it's probably in the process of it now.
Can we assume what it is?
It has aspects of the military and brutality with it and so on, but they're going to cross a line, and they'll know it at their popular gut level. It'll be a fear at their stomach level when they realize the enormity of what has occurred, and they'll never be able to take it back.
Oh, my.
The important thing about the interpretation of all these dots in model space is that to a certain degree, I have consciously tried to keep Clif, and Clif keeps Clif almost detached from belief sets, because if you start believing something, you can build a case in model space in your interpretation in this direction or that. And so it's almost best when you're trying to interpret the future not to have any attachments, whether it's religious or money. We're doing this as a garage thing, and we're not well off doing it. But at the same time, if we were to become possessed by the money aspects of it, that would taint the interpretation of what's ahead.
Well, and that's one question I was going to ask you too. How come you guys aren't profiting on this?
It's not morally correct, in my opinion. Yeah, we're messing around with heavy karma here. It's kind of like my particular view about the lotto. Here you have millions of people all putting their money and more importantly, their emotions towards a particular outcome. That is, that they will win. When everybody except for the winner loses, all that emotion turns negative, and that poor fellow that won gets all that emotion along with the money. Okay, so I have this very particular view of karma that's actually quite well researched, and so I tread a very careful path. And so Universe and I have a deal for sufficiency. I can get along with what it provides. If it decides to provide nothing out of this particular endeavor, then it'll fold. So far, we've been able to limp along here for a number of years, and we're getting better as we go along.
On the other hand, I'm not quite as pure. I'll take
He's an economist. You know, that's its own.
That explains it right there.
That does indeed.
If I read, for example, predictively that something may happen with precious metals or with grains or something like that, I might be inclined to trade on it. But we're not out to make the $1 million or to be overcome with those things that have gotten us into the problem in the first place.
How much of what you do with this computer is merely common sense? It's just looking at trends. It's understanding events.
Pattern analysis, correct. I happen to be particularly good at it. Used to be employed to do debugging over large chunks of code because I could find developing things called design patterns within software. And so I would be hired to come on into a project that was what's known as an operational failure. The thing worked, but not the way they'd originally designed, and they wanted to know why. And so I just sort of translated those skills. So you're quite correct. It's merely pattern recognition at a very fine degree.
Cliff, I'm gonna ask you this because you may be able to give me the answer. Not that you couldn't, George. And that is, over the last 6 months to a year, I have picked up from a number of callers, people in general, just witnessing people driving their cars, an incredible feeling of gloom. People just don't seem to be, I'm not talking about everyone, but people just don't seem to be happy anymore.
Sure.
There's something looming over.
That's what we call the building tension language.
What is this?
That's probably, as we say, the leaks coming through the future that are affecting your state of